The obese girl thought love was impossible. A cowboy made it possible, and real every single morning. Clara Martinez had always felt like the world was designed for everyone else. From the moment she could remember, she was different from the other kids in her small Texas town. She wasn't just shy, she carried the weight of her body in every step, and with that weight came a feeling of invisibility. Kids at school would whisper when she walked by, some would point, others would snicker. At first, she tried to ignore it, telling herself that their words didn't matter, but over time, the teasing started to seep into her heart. By the time she reached her teenage years, Clara had begun to believe what they said. She wasn't like the other girls. She was too big, too awkward, too much. School was hard. Clara loved learning, but the classroom often felt like a stage where everyone else was performing and she was just sitting in the shadows. She would spend hours in the library, hiding among the rows of books. To her, books weren't just stories, they were friends. They offered adventure, love, and acceptance without judgment. Clara could travel the world in pages, meet heroes, and experience lives completely different from her own. She felt safe there, surrounded by words and imagination, because in the library no one cared about her size or her insecurities. She could simply exist. Her family loved her, of course. Her mother, Maria, would often tell her, "Clara, you are beautiful just the way you are. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." Her father, Manuel, was quieter but supportive in his own way. He never commented on her body and instead encouraged her to chase her dreams and be kind to others. But love at home wasn't always enough to shield her from the outside world. When classmates, neighbors, or even strangers on the street looked at her differently, it hurt. People often assumed she was lazy or lacked discipline, when in reality she was thoughtful, intelligent, and sensitive. But assumptions were easier for others than trying to understand. By the time she reached adulthood, Clara had built walls around herself. She avoided parties, social events, and any situation where attention might fall on her. She had learned to keep her head down and hope that no one noticed her. Dating, in particular, felt like a dream that would never come true. The idea of someone loving her for who she was, her whole self, not just her appearance, seemed impossible. She tried to push those thoughts away, telling herself that she had books, work, and a life that, while quiet, was manageable. But in the deepest corners of her heart, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, love was meant for her too. Clara worked at the local library in her town, a quiet place tucked between a small cafe and a second-hand bookstore. The library wasn't just her workplace, it was her sanctuary. Every morning she would unlock the doors, switch on the lights, and breathe in the familiar scent of old paper and polished wood. She knew every shelf, every corner, every nook where a child might curl up to read or a student might search for knowledge. Clara loved her job because it gave her a sense of purpose. She loved recommending books to visitors, seeing their eyes light up when they found exactly what they were looking for. In those moments, she felt useful, needed, and happy. Her mornings were the same every day. She would wake up early, make herself a cup of coffee, and sit by the window in her small apartment above the library. She liked watching the town wake up, the school buses rumbling down the street, the neighbors walking their dogs, the sun slowly spilling light over the fields beyond town. Those mornings were quiet, peaceful, and predictable. They gave her a sense of control in a world that often felt chaotic and judgmental. She would read a few chapters of a book before heading downstairs, letting the characters and stories fill her with courage for the day ahead. Even though Clara's life seemed calm, she often felt lonely. She longed for companionship, for someone to see her as more than her size or her insecurities. She dreamed of conversations that went beyond polite greetings, of laughter shared in moments of pure connection. But she was also afraid that if she tried to reach out, she would be rejected, afraid that no one could ever truly understand her. And so, she stayed in her comfort zone, hiding behind books, routines, and her own thoughts. Despite all of this, Clara had a spark within her that no teasing or judgment could extinguish. She had dreams, ambitions, and a kind heart that wanted to see the best in people. She volunteered at the local community center occasionally, helping children with reading and homework. It was during these moments that she felt the purest form of herself, helpful, patient, and alive. She discovered that when she focused on others, her own insecurities faded for a little while. The children didn't care about her size, they only cared about her stories, her encouragement, and her attention. Evenings were her favorite part of the day. After the library closed, Clara would sometimes walk down to the small park near the edge of town. She liked to watch the sunset, painting the sky with shades of orange, pink, and purple. She would sit on the swing, letting herself imagine a life beyond the small town, one where she could be brave, loved, and accepted. In those moments, she let herself dream, even if the dreams seemed far away and impossible. Her friends were mostly online. She had a small circle of people who connected over shared interests, mostly reading and writing. They were supportive and kind, but Clara longed for someone in real life who could hold her hand, laugh with her, and understand her heart. The online friendships helped, but they could not replace the human connection she secretly craved. The idea of meeting someone who would truly love her, her mind, her heart, and her body, seemed like a fairy tale she had no right to imagine. Clara's days passed quietly, filled with routines that made life manageable. She had learned to find joy in small things: a new book arrival at the library, a smile from a stranger, the smell of fresh rain in the morning. She celebrated these moments quietly, savoring them like precious treasures. But beneath the calm, there was a restlessness, a hope that one day her life might change. That one day love would find her not because of what she looked like, but because of who she was. On some nights, she would lie awake and imagine meeting someone unexpectedly. She would picture a kind smile, a gentle laugh, and conversations that stretched long into the night. She imagined holding hands, walking through fields, and sharing stories without fear of judgment. These thoughts were bittersweet. They made her heart ache for something she wasn't sure could exist. Yet, in imagining it, Clara felt alive, and that was a feeling she cherished more than anything. Clara's story wasn't just about her weight or her insecurities. It was about resilience, courage, and the quiet strength of a heart that refused to give up, even when the world seemed unkind. Every day she showed up. Every morning she brewed her coffee. Every time she helped a child or smiled at a stranger, she was proving to herself that she mattered. And even though she didn't yet know it, the life she dreamed of, the love she thought was impossible, was waiting for her. In that small town with its dusty streets and open fields, Clara was quietly living a story that was far from ordinary. She was preparing herself, without realizing it, for a moment that would change everything. A moment that would show her that love isn't about fitting into someone else's idea of beauty. Love is about seeing, accepting, and cherishing the heart that beats beneath the surface. Clara didn't know when that moment would come, or who would bring it, but deep inside, she held on to the hope that one day, her mornings would feel different, not just peaceful, but filled with the warmth of someone who truly loved her. And so, she kept reading, dreaming, and living her quiet, beautiful life, never knowing that the very thing she thought impossible was moving closer, step by step, into her world. Clara had always thought that her life was destined to be quiet and predictable, but one summer afternoon, everything began to shift. The county fair came to her small Texas town, a yearly event filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fried foods and sweet treats. Clara usually avoided big crowds, but that day, on a rare whim, she decided to visit. She told herself it was just for the fresh air, a chance to see the town alive with activity, and maybe enjoy a funnel cake. As she walked past the brightly painted booths and the twirling rides, she felt the usual wave of self-consciousness. People were everywhere, kids running, parents laughing, teenagers showing off for their friends, and Clara felt like a shadow among the colors and noise. But then something unusual happened. She noticed a small livestock stand at the edge of the fairgrounds. It wasn't flashy, but it drew her in. There, a young cowboy with a sunburned face and kind eyes was helping with the animals. He moved with a calm confidence, talking to the animals as if he knew each one personally. Something about him made Clara pause. His name was Luke Hayes. Clara didn't know him personally, but she had seen him around town before. He wasn't the type to stand out at first glance, but there was something in his presence that felt comforting and real. That day, he looked up and smiled at her as she lingered nearby. It was a simple smile, nothing dramatic, but it made Clara's chest tighten in a way she hadn't expected. She quickly looked away, reminding herself that she wasn't meant for attention. Yet curiosity kept pulling her back. For a while, she watched him from a distance. Luke was patient and gentle with the animals, and occasionally children would approach him to ask questions. He answered everyone kindly, never rushing, never seeming annoyed. Clara admired that patience. She had never met someone so effortlessly calm, someone who seemed genuinely kind without needing to show off. She felt a strange pull in her chest, a mixture of curiosity and fear because she didn't know how to be around someone like him. By chance, a little girl stumbled near Clara and dropped her stuffed toy. Without thinking, Clara bent down to pick it up and handed it back to the child. "Here you go," she said with a soft smile. The girl's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you," she chirped. That simple interaction made Clara feel noticed and capable, something she didn't often feel. And then she noticed Luke watching her from the edge of the stand. He nodded slightly and smiled again. Clara felt her face warm and quickly turned away. Over the next few weeks, fate seemed determined to push them together. Clara found herself running into Luke at the local farmer's market, at the rodeo, and even at the library where she worked. Each time their conversations started small, "Hi, how are you?" or comments about the weather, but slowly they began to stretch into longer talks. Luke had a gentle humor that made Clara laugh, a rare gift for someone who usually felt awkward and unsure. She discovered that he loved the quiet things in life too, like the smell of fresh hay, the sound of birds in the morning, and the taste of homemade pie. Despite her growing feelings, Clara's insecurities loomed large. Every time Luke smiled at her or complimented something about her, she felt a small pang of disbelief. Why would someone like him be interested in me? She wondered. Her mind replayed every hurtful word she had ever heard about her body. It was a constant battle between hope and fear often won. But Luke's patience never wavered. He never pushed her, never pressured her. Instead, he simply existed in a way that made her feel safe. One warm afternoon, Clara found herself at the rodeo, sitting on the edge of the stands with a cup of lemonade. Luke had been helping his family with the cattle, and he waved her over. "Hey, want to see something cool?" he asked. Clara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Luke led her behind the pens and showed her the youngest calves, explaining how they were raised and cared for. He spoke with pride and respect for the animals, and Clara couldn't help but be fascinated. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was experiencing something real, something important, alongside someone who genuinely cared. As they walked back to the stands, Luke asked about her favorite books and what she liked to do in her free time. Clara found herself opening up in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. She talked about the library, the children she helped, and the quiet mornings she loved. Luke listened with genuine interest, never interrupting, never judging. Each time she spoke, Clara felt a little more seen, a little more accepted. The walls she had built around her heart began to soften, brick by brick. Evenings became moments she looked forward to. On their occasional walks through the fields, they would talk about dreams, life, and small joys. Luke never commented on her size, never made her feel self-conscious. Instead, he noticed her laughter, her intelligence, and the warmth in her eyes. Clara began to understand that attraction was not just about appearances. She realized that someone could be drawn to kindness, courage, and spirit, the very qualities she had often ignored in herself. But Clara's insecurities were stubborn. There were nights she would lie awake and replay the day's interactions in her mind, overthinking every word and gesture. Did he really mean that compliment? She would wonder. Is he just being polite? Yet, even in her doubt, a small flame of hope burned inside her. She wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, Luke could see her for who she truly was. And slowly, she began to trust that feeling, allowing herself to imagine a life where love wasn't impossible. There were small moments that made her heart leap. One afternoon, Luke brought her a bouquet of wildflowers from his family's garden. "For you," he said simply. Clara felt tears prick her eyes, not because she was overwhelmed, but because someone had thought of her in such a tender, kind way. It wasn't flashy or dramatic. It was thoughtful and genuine. That day, Clara realized that love didn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it arrived quietly, steadily, and with sincerity. Luke also shared his own insecurities with her. He spoke about the pressures of running a family farm, the fear of failure, and the challenges he faced growing up. Clara listened, offering her empathy and support, and in those moments their bond deepened. They began to understand each other not just on the surface, but in a way that mattered, heart to heart. Clara discovered that opening up to someone could be scary, but it could also be healing. Summer faded into early autumn, and with it, Clara's life began to change. She found herself laughing more freely, stepping outside her comfort zone, and allowing herself to enjoy life in ways she hadn't before. She still had moments of doubt, but Luke's patience and consistency helped her face them. Their friendship blossomed into something more, something that felt tender, safe, and promising. And for the first time in her life, Clara allowed herself to believe that love might not be impossible after all. There were challenges, of course. Clara sometimes feared judgment from others, worried that people would not understand her or her choices. She struggled with moments of insecurity, feeling unsure if she deserved happiness. But Luke never made her feel ashamed. Instead, he celebrated her uniqueness, reminding her with small gestures and words that she was valued, loved, and appreciated. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day, rooted in trust, respect, and genuine affection. One crisp morning, Clara sat on a bench near the river watching the mist rise from the water. Luke joined her, carrying 2 cups of steaming coffee. "I saved you the last cinnamon roll," he joked, handing her one. Clara laughed, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. It was a simple moment, but it carried weight. She realized that happiness didn't always come in dramatic bursts. It often arrived in small, consistent ways, through kindness, attention, and shared experiences. Clara's mornings began to feel different. She woke up with anticipation, wondering what small joys the day would bring. She thought less about her insecurities and more about the people and moments that made her life meaningful. Luke had shown her that love was not just a dream. It could be real, steady, and deeply comforting. And in those early autumn days, surrounded by the changing leaves and soft sunlight, Clara felt a quiet hope blossom in her heart, a hope that had once seemed impossible. By the time the leaves turned golden and the town prepared for its harvest festival, Clara and Luke had become inseparable. Their conversations flowed easily, filled with laughter, gentle teasing, and shared dreams. Clara began to see herself differently, not just as the girl who had been teased or overlooked, but as someone worthy of love, connection, and happiness. She realized that the walls she had built were not permanent. They could be softened, brick by brick, with patience, understanding, and genuine care. And so, summer had brought more than sun and fairs. It had brought Clara a glimpse of something she had long believed impossible, the possibility of love. Not the kind of love she had read about in books, perfect and dramatic, but the kind that was real, gentle, and patient. It was a love that made her feel seen, accepted, and cherished, not despite who she was, but because of it. And for the first time, Clara felt a quiet confidence that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to embrace it. Ever been. She had never imagined that someone like Luke could become such a steady, comforting presence in her life. They spent long afternoons walking through golden fields, sharing stories, and laughing in ways that made Clara feel lighter, freer. Yet, as much as she wanted to trust the happiness she felt, her insecurities sometimes crept in like shadows over a sunlit field. One afternoon, Clara found herself sitting on a bench at the edge of the library's small garden, staring at the rows of colorful flowers that had been planted that spring. She held a book in her lap but wasn't really reading. Her mind kept wandering to the little arguments and doubts she carried about herself. "Am I good enough for him?" she whispered softly to herself. The words felt heavy, familiar, and almost impossible to shake. Clara had spent so many years believing that love wasn't meant for her, and sometimes old habits die hard. Luke, as if sensing her silence, walked up to the garden with a smile and 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate. "Here," he said gently, handing one to her. "I thought you might need this." Clara smiled faintly, grateful, but the quiet doubt in her chest refused to disappear. Luke sat down beside her, his presence calm and steady, yet she felt an inexplicable tension. She didn't know how to explain why she felt so uncertain. All she knew was that she feared losing what she had, even before fully embracing it. Over the next few days, small misunderstandings began to test their growing bond. One morning, Luke had promised to meet Clara at the town fair's pumpkin patch, but a sudden chore on the farm delayed him. Clara waited, excited and nervous, and when he finally arrived, she felt a rush of disappointment. She tried to smile, but the moment felt awkward. "I'm so sorry," Luke said earnestly, brushing off his sleeves. "The cows needed me and I couldn't leave them." Clara nodded, trying to hide the sting she felt. That evening, she replayed the day over and over in her mind, questioning everything. Her insecurities whispered that maybe Luke didn't care as much as she thought, that perhaps she had been imagining his kindness and attention all along. Clara wanted to talk to him, to ask why, but a small part of her feared that doing so would make her seem needy or weak. So she kept her thoughts to herself, carrying the disappointment like a heavy stone in her heart. Meanwhile, Luke noticed a change in her behavior. Clara, who usually greeted him with warmth and ease, had become quiet and distant. He tried to reach out, sending a gentle text. "Hope you're okay. Can we talk tomorrow?" But Clara, feeling vulnerable, hesitated. She wanted to respond but couldn't find the right words. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with her emotions. She realized that her fear of rejection had once again built a wall between them. The next morning, she resolved to confront her feelings. She couldn't let fear control her any longer. She walked to the small field where Luke often worked with the animals, her heart pounding. When she saw him brushing hay from his shirt, she felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "Luke," she called softly. He looked up, his expression lighting with hope. "Clara, hey, are you okay?" Clara took a deep breath. I just want you to know how I feel. Sometimes I get scared that maybe you don't care or that I'm not enough." Her voice trembled slightly, but she continued. "I know it's silly, but I have carried these fears for so long and I don't want them to come between us." Luke's eyes softened. He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Clara, nothing you feel is silly. I care about you more than I can say. You've got a beautiful heart and that's what matters to me. Not anyone else's opinion, not your past, not anything. Just you." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that melted some of the fear in her chest. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt safe enough to believe him. Over the next few weeks, Clara slowly learned to trust Luke more and more. They spent time together helping with farm chores, reading side by side in the evenings, and exploring the quiet fields outside town. Clara found herself laughing more freely and feeling lighter than she had in years. The fear and doubt that had haunted her for so long didn't disappear entirely, but with Luke by her side, they seemed smaller, less overwhelming. One afternoon, they decided to take a short trip to a nearby river. The air was crisp, and the water sparkled in the sunlight. Clara had been hesitant at first, worried about being in a new environment, but Luke's calm encouragement reassured her. As they walked along the riverbank, he pointed out the small fish darting under the surface and the birds gliding above. He shared little stories about his childhood, growing up on the farm, and Clara listened, captivated. It was the simplicity and authenticity of Luke's life that drew her in, making her feel connected in a way she hadn't experienced before. As they sat on a large, flat rock near the water, Clara felt a rush of gratitude and hope. She realized that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect appearances. It was about trust, patience, and genuine care. Luke didn't just see her. He noticed her kindness, her intelligence, her humor. And in return, Clara began to see herself in a new light, not as the girl who had always felt too much or too different, but as someone worthy of love and happiness. Yet life wasn't without its challenges. One rainy afternoon, a misunderstanding occurred that tested their bond. Clara overheard a conversation in town and mistakenly thought Luke had spoken negatively about her. Her heart sank, and old insecurities resurfaced with full force. She felt hurt, confused, and unsure of what to believe. That evening, she avoided Luke, retreating to her apartment where she sat quietly, trying to make sense of her emotions. Luke, on the other hand, noticed her absence and worried. He didn't want to push her, but he also didn't want the misunderstanding to grow into something bigger. The next morning, he rode over on his horse, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers. Clara saw him approaching and felt a mix of anger, fear, and relief. She didn't know what to say. Luke dismounted and stood a few feet away, holding the flowers gently. "Clara," he said softly, "I don't know what happened yesterday, but I need you to know that nothing I say or do could make me think any less of you. You are incredible and I care about you, always." His voice was steady, patient, and full of sincerity. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She realized that she had let her insecurities control her perspective. In that moment, she understood that love wasn't just about feelings. It was also about trust, patience, and willingness to see past fear. She stepped forward, taking the flowers and offering a small, trembling smile. I'm sorry," she whispered. "I let my fears get in the way." Luke smiled, gently taking her hand. "No apologies needed. We're learning together, that's what matters." In that simple exchange, Clara felt a profound shift. She realized that real love required courage, not just to give love, but to accept it and trust it in return. Over the next few weeks, Clara focused on letting go of the old doubts that had shadowed her life for so long. She allowed herself to enjoy her mornings with Luke, the walks through fields, the quiet evenings reading side by side. She found strength in his unwavering support and kindness, and in turn she discovered that she could be brave too. Every small gesture, his smile, a shared joke, a hand held in comfort, reminded her that love was real, patient, and steadfast. By the time the harvest festival arrived, Clara felt ready to fully embrace her feelings. She walked beside Luke through the festival grounds, enjoying the smells of fresh pies and roasted corn, the laughter of children, and the music drifting through the crisp air. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel invisible or inadequate. She felt seen, cherished, and deeply grateful. That evening, as the sun set behind the fields, Luke took her hands and looked into her eyes. "Clara, I know life hasn't always been easy for you, but I want you to know that I'm here. Every morning, every day, I want to be by your side. You're not alone." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was more than words. It was a promise, a truth she could finally believe. Clara had learned an important lesson. Love isn't about perfection, appearances, or rushing into grand gestures. It's about consistency, patience, trust, and seeing the good in each other, even when fears try to creep in. She realized that the girl who had once felt invisible and unworthy could indeed experience real, lasting love. And that love could bring joy every single morning in small, quiet ways. As the festival lights twinkled and the evening grew cool, Clara and Luke walked hand in hand, feeling the strength of their bond. They had faced doubts, insecurities, and misunderstandings, but they had also discovered the beauty of love grounded in trust and patience. Clara knew that challenges would come again, as they always do in life, but for the first time, she felt ready to face them with someone who truly loved her. And in that golden autumn evening, with the smell of hay and baked goods in the air, Clara understood something she had never believed possible. Love, real and patient, could not only exist, it could be hers every single morning. Autumn had passed, and winter settled over the small Texas town with a quiet, gentle beauty. The fields that had once been golden with harvest were now soft and white under a fresh blanket of snow. Clara woke up one morning, as she had for many days now, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. Her mornings were no longer filled with fear or doubt. Instead, they carried warmth, hope, and the anticipation of sharing her day with Luke. For the first time, love wasn't just a distant dream. It was real, steady, and part of her every day. Clara and Luke had grown closer than ever. Their bond had been tested by doubts, insecurities, and small misunderstandings, but each challenge had made them stronger. Clara had learned to trust not only Luke but also herself. She no longer questioned whether she was worthy of love. She had accepted that she was. She had learned that real love is patient, kind, and consistent, and she had found all of those things in Luke. Every morning, they shared small rituals that brought joy to both of their hearts. Luke would bring her a cup of coffee or hot chocolate, sometimes with a small treat, and they would sit by the window of Clara's apartment, watching the sun rise over the fields. The town would slowly awaken beneath them, but in those moments, it felt as though the world had shrunk to just the two of them. They would talk about their plans for the day, their dreams, and sometimes they would simply sit in silence, letting the quiet comfort of each other's presence fill the room. Clara's life outside of her mornings had also changed. She approached her work at the library with a renewed energy, inspired by the love and encouragement she had found. She spent extra time helping children discover the joy of reading, and she found herself laughing more freely and enjoying each interaction. People in town began to notice a new light in her eyes, a warmth that had not been there before. Even strangers greeted her with a smile, sensing the happiness she now carried. Luke, too, found joy in these moments. He loved watching Clara's confidence grow, seeing her laugh freely and noticing the small gestures that reflected her heart. He would often say, "You shine, Clara. You've always had this light inside, and now you let it out." Clara would blush at the compliment but felt it deep in her heart. She realized that love could bring out the best in a person, encouraging them to embrace themselves fully and without fear. One winter afternoon, Luke invited Clara to help with preparations for a local community event. It was a celebration of the town's history, with small performances, handmade crafts, and food stalls. Clara was hesitant at first, worried about being in a crowd, but Luke's calm reassurance gave her courage. Together, they decorated tables, set up lights, and helped with organizing activities. Clara noticed how natural it felt to work alongside Luke, how easy it was to communicate with him without judgment or fear. She realized that love, when real, could make life feel lighter and more meaningful, even in the simplest tasks. As the festival began, Clara and Luke walked hand in hand through the crowd, taking in the music, laughter, and warmth that filled the air. Children ran past them with painted faces and handmade toys. Parents chatted happily, and the smell of baked goods and roasted corn drifted through the chilly winter air. Clara felt a sense of belonging that she had never experienced before. For so long, she had felt invisible, but in this moment she felt fully present, fully alive, and fully loved. That evening, Luke led Clara to a quiet corner of the festival, away from the noise and crowds. He had prepared a small surprise, a blanket laid on the snow, surrounded by lanterns that glowed softly in the fading light. Clara's eyes widened in surprise and her heart raced. "I wanted to make tonight special," Luke said softly. "For you, for us." Clara felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness but from the overwhelming sense of being seen and cherished. They sat together on the blanket, wrapped in warmth and comfort. Luke took her hands in his, looking into her eyes with a sincerity that made Clara's heart swell. "Clara," he said, "I want to spend every morning, every day with you. You are the most incredible person I've ever known, and I can't imagine my life without you." Clara's heart leapt. She realized that all her fears, all the moments of doubt had led her to this, real love, patient and unwavering. "Luke," she whispered, her voice trembling, I love you too. I've never felt this way before, and I've never felt this safe and happy with anyone. You make me feel seen, accepted, and loved for exactly who I am." Luke smiled, pulling her into a gentle embrace. In that moment, the world seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, wrapped in warmth, love, and trust. As the months passed, Clara and Luke's love continued to grow. They faced challenges, of course. Life always brings obstacles. But they met them together, supporting each other and growing stronger with every step. Clara had learned that love wasn't about perfection or appearances. It was about patience, kindness, trust, and the willingness to see the best in each other. Luke had taught her that love could be real every single morning, not just in grand gestures, but in small, consistent moments of care and attention. Clara also began to see herself differently. She had spent so many years hiding, doubting, and fearing rejection. But Luke's unwavering love had shown her that she was worthy, capable, and deserving of happiness. She embraced her body, her mind, and her heart with a new confidence, realizing that true love encouraged self-acceptance rather than demanding change. Each morning, she woke up feeling gratitude for the life she had, for the love she shared, and for the hope that had become a steady part of her existence. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came new beginnings. The fields bloomed with wildflowers, the town buzzed with life, and Clara felt the excitement of possibilities stretching before her. She and Luke spent long days exploring the countryside, enjoying picnics by the river and tending to small projects on the farm. Every day was a lesson in joy, patience, and the beauty of sharing life with someone who truly cared. One bright spring morning, Luke surprised Clara with a small gathering of friends and family in a sunlit meadow. Lanterns hung from trees, wildflowers decorated tables, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh grass. Clara realized that Luke had planned this as a celebration of their journey together, a symbol of love, resilience, and the life they had built. Her heart overflowed with gratitude, knowing that she was loved deeply and unconditionally. As the day turned to evening, Luke knelt in the soft grass before Clara, holding her hands and looking into her eyes. "Clara," he said, his voice steady and full of emotion, "you've changed my life in ways I can't put into words. You've shown me kindness, courage, and love in its purest form. Will you marry me?" Clara felt tears stream down her face, her heart racing with joy. She nodded, barely able to speak, whispering, "Yes, Luke, yes, 1,000 times yes." Their wedding was a simple, beautiful ceremony under the open Texas sky. Friends, family, and the small town community gathered to celebrate their love. Clara walked down a path lined with wildflowers, Luke waiting at the end with a smile that lit up her world. As they exchanged vows, Clara felt the culmination of her journey, the journey from self-doubt, fear, and invisibility to love, acceptance, and joy. In the days, months, and years that followed, Clara and Luke built a life filled with warmth, laughter, and unwavering support. Their mornings remained sacred, a cup of coffee, a quiet walk, a shared smile, and in those small moments they found the true essence of love. Clara no longer questioned her worth, no longer feared rejection. She knew that she was loved for exactly who she was, and that knowledge gave her strength, joy, and peace. Clara often thought back to the girl who had hidden in the library, surrounded by books, dreaming of a life she thought she could never have. She realized that every hardship, every moment of doubt, and every fear had prepared her for this love. She had learned patience, resilience, and self-acceptance. And now, with Luke by her side, she lived a life richer than any story she had ever read. One filled with real, enduring love that touched every morning, every day, and every heartbeat. Even the quiet moments were filled with joy. Luke would sometimes make her laugh with small jokes or playful teasing, and Clara would respond with smiles and gentle laughter. They shared their dreams for the future, planned small adventures, and supported each other through the ups and downs of daily life. Love, Clara realized, wasn't just a feeling. It was a choice made every day, in countless little actions, words, and gestures. Years later, Clara and Luke often sat together on the porch of their farmhouse, watching the sunrise over the fields. The morning light painted everything in gold, and Clara felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had once thought love was impossible, that it would never come for her, but here it was, real, steady, and beautiful. Every morning she woke up knowing that she was cherished, respected, and celebrated. Every day she felt the warmth of a love that had grown patiently, nurtured by kindness, understanding, and trust. And so, Clara's story came full circle. The girl who had once hidden behind books, who had feared rejection and invisibility, had discovered something extraordinary. She had discovered that love is possible, even when it feels out of reach. She had discovered that patience, courage, and openness can bring happiness in ways one might never imagine. Most importantly, she had discovered that real love is not a fleeting dream. It is a steady, enduring presence that can make every single morning feel bright, hopeful, and full of joy. Clara smiled as she held Luke's hand, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip. She no longer feared the future, for she knew that whatever challenges came, they would face them together. And in that quiet, golden moment, Clara realized that love, the kind she had once thought impossible, was now her reality, every single morning for the rest of her life.